What's up guys, my name is Fran and once again welcome back. So this is a GTX 1080 and this is a GTX 1080 Ti. So Nvidia is claiming that this card is 35% faster than this card. So are they telling the truth or is it a bunch of marketing smoke and mirrors? In this video, we're gonna find out. Okay, so starting off with the appearances, not much has really changed when it comes to the 1080 Ti, at least when it comes to the Founders Edition of the card. You're still going to find Nvidia's blower style, jagged edge cooler that comes with an improved vapor chamber at least this time around, but not much has really changed other than that. Now looking at some of the power connector requirements, the GTX 1080 only requires a single 8-pin, while the 1080 Ti does require a single 8-pin as well as a single 6-pin. And when it comes to the actual connections on these cards, not much has really changed except for the removal of the DVI port. Okay, so now taking a look at some of the tech specs, the GTX 1080 has 2,560 CUDA cores, while the 1080 Ti has 3,584. I like that word, CUDA cores. Taking a look at some of the core clocks, the GTX 1080 actually boosts to about 1,607 MHz, while the 1080 Ti is actually clocked lower at 1,481 MHz. Now when it comes to memory, the 1080 has 8 GB of GDDR5X memory running at 256 bits, while the 1080 Ti actually has 11 GB of GDDR5X memory at 352 bits. Now all of this techno mumbo jumbo specification actually equates to 9 teraflops of compute on the GTX 1080 and 11.3 teraflops of compute on the 1080 Ti. But does that really equate to a 35% performance increase? Let's take a look at some of the benchmarking numbers. Okay, so for all the testing for these cards, I did everything at a 4K resolution. Now I did it that way because I feel like if you have a really high-end card like this one, you most likely are gonna have a really high-end setup that includes a 4K monitor. Now for both of these cards, I also ran a pretty hefty overclock. For the GTX 1080, I did plus 225 to the core clock and plus 500 to the memory clock. And for the 1080 Ti, I did plus 175 Hz for the core clock and then plus 200 for the memory clock. Okay, so starting off with Shadow of Mordor, the GTX 1080 was actually able to bump out 55 frames per second at ultra settings, while the 1080 Ti was actually able to pump out 81 frames per second. Moving on to Tomb Raider, the 1080 was actually able to pump out 44 frames per second, while the 1080 Ti was actually able to give me 61 frames per second. In Project Cars, the GTX 1080 was only able to give me 19 frames per second with everything cranked to the max, while the 1080 Ti was able to give me 26 frames per second. And finally, looking at Battlefield 1, the 1080 was actually able to pump out 57 frames per second, while the 1080 Ti was actually able to lock in at 60 frames per second. Now this might have been a limitation of my monitor, but that's just what I was reading out on the CAM software. Okay, so yeah, after looking at some of those numbers, seems like Nvidia wasn't lying. The GTX 1080 Ti is a lot faster than the GTX 1080. So it's pretty crazy how far we've come when it comes to graphics technology nowadays. We can have a single card, the GTX 1080, pump out really decent frames in a 4K resolution. And the GTX 1080 Ti takes it to a whole nother level. This is going to be super beneficial when we have 4K monitors above 60 frames per second, like the upcoming Asus Swift that's going to be 4K IPS at 144 frames. A 4K IPS monitor at 144 Hz, that's actually my dream. Now more traditionally, I've always run an SLI setup. That's because I never really felt like I had enough power. But I think with the 1080 Ti, I might just run a single card configuration this time around. But that is going to wrap it up for this video of the 1080 Ti versus the GTX 1080. If you guys have any questions about this card or this performance or the overclocks or anything technical at all, do me a favor, leave it in the comment section below. Also while you're down there, if you like this video and you want to see more like it, slam on that like button, and if you aren't already subscribed to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Once again guys, my name is Fran, thanks so much for checking out this video, and I will see you guys in my next one.